Welcome to Real Moments, where we share raw, unfiltered stories of life's triumphs and trials. I'm Eleanor Mayfield, and today I'm sharing my story, a tale of love, betrayal, and the strength to reclaim what's mine. This isn't just a story about a mother and her children. It's about discovering who you are when everything you believed in crumbles. Grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's walk through the orchard of my life together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Real Moments to join our community of storytellers. I am Eleanor Mayfield, 68 years old, a mother, a wife, and now a woman left with nothing but the legacy my husband and I built. My name was once Eleanor Jane Whitmore before. I married Edward in 1981. We transformed 20 acres of neglected apple orchards on the outskirts of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, into Mayfield Family Orchards, a respected organic farming operation. I raised 2 children, Thomas and Abigail, believing they would carry forward the values we instilled. But life doesn't always follow expectations. And my story is not about family love, but about betrayal and justice. Edward passed away from pancreatic cancer after a 14-month battle. The disease was a silent executioner, giving us just enough time to settle affairs, but not enough to truly live with the truth. We kept his illness secret, sparing our children the burden as they were consumed by their own lives. Thomas, with his financial consulting career in Philadelphia, was always absent during holidays. Abigail, in Pittsburgh, stumbled through one failed wellness business after another, each time needing more money from her father. "Let them live a little longer without this shadow," Edward said, his voice faint from painkillers. I nodded. But deep down, I knew better. After Edward's funeral, our children returned to the house where they grew up in Willow Creek. I expected comfort, but instead they brought questions about the will. Thomas, with a condescending tone, asked about medical bills and suggested selling the orchard. "Be practical, Mom," he said, as if I were a burden to be managed. Abigail arrived later, dragging 6 suitcases and the scent of costly failure. She hugged her father with genuine tears. But I soon discovered both had plotted to sell the house and orchard to a developer, Silver Horizons, using a forged will. They didn't stop there. A day after the funeral, Thomas and Abigail drove me in a rented SUV to County Road 19, a remote rural route. "This is where you get off, Mom," Thomas said, his voice cold. "The house and business are mine now." Abigail, confused but silent, watched as Thomas opened the car door, leaving me by an empty field with a few clothes and my medication. "There's a gas station a few miles away," he said, as if that sufficed. I stood there, watching the car disappear, not out of heartbreak, but with a cold clarity. My children had chosen betrayal. I didn't collapse. Instead, I acted. Charles, our longtime family lawyer and Edward's schoolmate, met me at his office in downtown Willow Creek. I recounted everything: the forged will, the abandonment, their plan. "That will isn't the one Edward and I prepared," Charles confirmed, his face darkening. I opened my purse and pulled out a fireproof box containing the deed to the original 20 acres. Registered under my maiden name, Whitmore, as a precaution Edward had taken when we first expanded the orchard. "Smart," Charles said. "You two were always a step ahead." Ha! I looked him in the eye, my voice steady. "I want my home back. I want Edward's business. And I want my children to understand what they've done." Charles nodded. "First, you need a place to stay. My sister's bed and breakfast, Willow Haven, has a vacancy. Tomorrow, we'll start the legal work." "No," I interrupted. It has to be faster. The developer closes next week. That night, in the cozy floral wallpapered room at Willow Haven, I began weaving my web. My first call was to Walter Thompson, regional manager of Willow Creek Trust Bank, where the orchard had banked for decades. "I need your help to protect what's left of the business," I said, reporting suspicious transactions, including Abigail's withdrawal of $50,000 before the funeral. My second call was to Daniel Harper, an agricultural extension agent Hood. Worked with us for 15 years, asking for information on development projects on county farmland. My third call was to Margaret Klein, editor of the Willow Creek Chronicle and a distant relative of Edward. "I have a story about inheritance fraud and protected farmland," I told her. By midnight, I had made 7 calls, each a thread in my plan. Willow Creek slept quietly outside my window, unaware that Eleanor Mayfield, the gentle mother, the devoted wife, was preparing for war. The next morning, I met Charles with a notebook full of detailed notes on every contract, client, and aspect of the orchard's operations. "Freeze the business accounts and file an emergency injunction to block the sale based on the forged will," I instructed. Charles was impressed by my thoroughness. "I lived with Edward for 40 years, I said. "I know every detail of that business." By noon, the plan was in motion. Charles filed the injunction. Walter froze the accounts pending investigation. And Daniel reported protected wetlands on my 20 acres, complicating Silver Horizon's plans. My phone rang a new prepaid number Charles had ensured my children received. "Mom, what have you done?" Thomas growled. "Your deal, not mine," I replied calmly. "I've only just begun." James Carter, Edward's old friend and a prominent real estate lawyer in Philadelphia, arrived in Willow Creek the next morning. He confirmed Silver Horizons had violated multiple environmental regulations and had already filed injunctions in 3 counties. Adding mine to the list, "We need your children's signatures renouncing their claims based on the forged will." James said, "I called Nathan Thompson, Walter's son and the county's assistant district attorney, to discuss criminal charges for fraud and elder abuse." "You're tougher than Edward gave you credit for," James remarked. "Edward knew exactly how tough I was," I corrected. "He just never thought I'd need to use it against our own children." When I confronted Thomas, I handed him an envelope, a letter Edward wrote for him before his death. Tucked inside Edward's favorite book, The Green Haven. "Did you even grieve for your father, or were you too busy plotting to profit from his death?" I asked. He stayed silent, snatching the letter and leaving. Abigail sobbed, claiming ignorance of her brother's plan, but bank records showed she withdrew $50,000 before the funeral. "It's too late for tears," I said. "Sign the papers renouncing your claims or I'll press charges." 3 months later, I sat in Edward's rocking chair, watching the summer sunset over an orchard heavy with ripening fruit. This year's harvest promised to be the best yet. Sarah, Daniel Harper's daughter and the new orchard manager, had proven herself more than capable. An article in the Philadelphia Times reported Silver Horizon's CEO indicted for fraud, sparked by my case. Exposing a pattern of elder exploitation across 3 states, Abigail sent texts begging to talk. But I deleted them, as I had the dozen. Before Thomas never reached out, but Charles heard he was asked to resign when his link to the fraud investigation surfaced. My children were learning a harsh lesson. Some betrayals cut too deep to forgive. Some bridges burn beyond repair. I began planning the future of Mayfield Family Orchards, a farm-to-table restaurant in the old barn. Educational programs for local schools and expanded organic practices. I established the Edward Mayfield Agricultural Scholarship for local students pursuing sustainable farming, funded by the profits my children tried to steal. Next week, I would host the first community harvest dinner, inviting neighbors and friends who supported me in my darkest moments. Each evening, I sat in Edward's chair, watching over the orchard we built a legacy, strong and enduring without. Our My Story is about strength, not loss. Some may judge me as harsh for cutting ties with my own flesh and blood. But betrayal from those you love most leaves a wound that changes you forever. My children made their choice on County Road 19. I chose justice every day after. Remember this: kindness is not weakness. True strength shines when you stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my story on Real Moments. If this tale of resilience and justice moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a true story that inspires. Share in the comments where you're watching from and what you'd do in my place. Would you forgive? Or would you choose justice like me? Let's keep the conversation going. Till next time, stay strong, stay true, and we'll see you in the next Real Moments video.